Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's webinar from Spec Innovations using Innoslate for Program Management. My name is Sarah Craig, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Let's go over some quick housekeeping before we get started. For those of you who may not be aware, Spec Innovations provides systems engineering services and solutions to the aerospace, defense, and intelligence communities. Our flagship software, Innoslate, provides users with an all-in-one systems engineering software solution with requirements management, analytics, modeling, simulation, and analysis of alternative tools. We help organizations securely collaborate on critical projects throughout the product or systems lifecycle. During the presentation, feel free to send us questions using the panel on the right, and we will get them answered in the question and answer part of our webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and we will make it available to you after the live presentation, so be sure to keep an eye out for it in your inbox. Now, I would like to introduce you to our presenter, Dr. Stephen Dam. Today, he will be explaining how to use Innoslate for program management, as well as giving a live demonstration featuring the tools in Innoslate that program managers can use to execute a variety of management processes. Dr. Dam is the president and founder of Spec Innovations. He has been involved with research, experiments, operations analysis, software development, systems engineering, and training for more than 40 years. Dr. Dam participated in the development of C4 ISR architecture framework and DoD architecture framework. He has also received an Expert Systems Engineering Professional ESCP certification from INCOSE. He currently is applying systems engineering techniques to various DoD, DOE, and commercial projects. And now I will hand over the controls to Dr. Dam, and we will get started.
Thanks, Sarah. So one of the things that we didn't say in that first part, we didn't mention program management per se, but the underlying language we use, which is the lifecycle modeling language, and Innoslate both were designed to support program management as well as systems engineering. Part of that is we recognized many years ago now that the overlap between what program managers do and what systems engineers do is quite a bit. We both optimize for cost, schedule, and performance. Well, just one of us does it for the system, the other does it for the program itself. And so when you think about that provides that there's a lot of overlap between capabilities and needs between the two communities. In fact, recently, actually a couple of years ago now, INCOSE and PMI co-wrote a book together called Integrated Program Management and Systems Engineering. So again, we were a few years ahead of them on that subject, and we think that we've provided some good implementations for that. I'll also point out that we are actually a services contractor and have been since 1993. And so we do a lot of program management work. We've worked on program management on very large contracts and saw the difficulties people were having with those. And so we've taken a lot of those lessons learned and brought them into our development of Innoslate and how we do things. So let me I'm going to talk a little bit about model-based program management processes and specifically how Innoslate can support those. And then I'll talk briefly about model-based reviews. That's kind of the big buzzword that's out there. We've been doing those, I think, for about 6 years now. So, so it's not new to us, but it is apparently new to the community. We think that's a great way to move forward in the future to save tremendous amounts of money in the review process. Also, a live demo. We're going to kind of go through and I'll hit some of the points and also bring up some of the new things that just popped out of the recent subpoint release that we put out. Well, we really finalized it Monday, so here we go. That'll be interesting. And then we'll hopefully leave plenty of time for questions and answers. So a little bit about, we've really looked at processes for quite a number of years, particularly management processes, and we've evolved on those for some time, for certainly the last 20 years. And these were the ones we kind of came down to as the critical management processes that interact with the life cycle. And so in our life cycle model, we show that program management bar. Well, these are those processes and how they're interacting with it. So that's kind of that bigger picture. The systems engineer plays all kinds of key roles in each of these steps of the management process. And this also can be used in your systems engineering management plans as things you can use for that process as well. So first one is work planning, and I'm not going to go through all the detail of this, but it's basic steps that you're probably familiar with. But the key is you're trying to develop a work plan. And so there are different aspects of that. There's a schedule aspect, there's costs, there's personnel, the critical resources. Personnel are part of that, but that's not just personnel. Just a lot of different things that you want to think about. Other interactions that you might have with external programs, other projects, things like that. And of course, not the least is understand that scope and the process model itself. So again, all these things come together in that work plan. And of course, the work plan, as any other plan, is something that needs to be evolutionary. It shouldn't be a static thing. It's something that ought to, over time, grow and improve and help you do things, and you learn from it and make better outputs and updates from it. So for Innoslate, we actually provide that capability inside the tool. There is a project plan document type that we already have in the tool. We have a couple different templates that are available for that. And of course, you can add your own templates as you need to, or you can tailor the ones we have. I think the two we have, I want to say maybe three we have. I think we have a NASA, we have a DAU, and we have the one that's the AV1 for DODAF. So sort of three different levels of that kind of plan that you might be interested in and be able to use. What that does is let you then just, import that template, and immediately you start putting the information into it. You can cut in diagrams, text from it. You can reuse elements with it, other information as well within it. So again, this becomes a living document that can be reviewed as well during those model-based reviews. One of the also things early you're going to do is identify project goals and requirements. Oftentimes those come in the form of things like your statement of work or your performance work statement, PWS. Those are the things that give you those basic requirements for the project that you're going to be looking at. You can import those using Innoslate's import analyzer, bring them into a documents view as a requirements document, and analyze them and understand them and differentiate between things that are just kind of giving you contextual statements versus requirements themselves. And we have a quality score for you to use for the purposes, not necessarily scoring your customer, although it works for that too, but also for the ability to help you identify where there might be potential ambiguities and problems in the way the requirement is stated. So you can spend some time talking to the customer, or if it's during an RFP phase, ask questions of the RFP to get clarifications that you need. And so that's very helpful to do that analysis early in the cycle. So we recommend actually starting this process during your proposal effort. You're not writing a proposal because you think you're going to lose. You're writing a proposal because you think you're going to win. So one of the best things you can do is start doing that analysis and work in Innoslate, and then have it prepared and ready when you win the contract. I personally have done that a number of times, and it makes the kickoff and startup very, very quick by comparison to what we used to do. Anyway, so also want to look at for those goals and objectives, and you can label them. There are labels for that. Those are statement labels in Innoslate. They're already available. The specific things I'm showing you up here don't have those labels. I've got a scope and a definition label and things like that. So there are other labels that are available. If you decide you want to extend those labels to both statements and requirements, you can do that in the schema editor. And there's an easy way to set that up if you'd like. Also, we can identify the different types of requirements in the document as functional, interface, things like that. Again, helping you build the analysis that you're trying to build for the development of the process. So maybe you look for your particular performance requirements that you need. Also, another thing that we recommend is doing process modeling. Now, we coined the term model-based program management, and haven't heard that really used a lot, but we use that term to represent that we can do what they told us to do back in the 50s. Deming was very big on statistical process analysis and control, also process development. And all that was about, understand what your processes were, model them, simulate them, try to derive from them then your cost and schedule. And so Innoslate enables that by providing you that modeling capability using the action diagram, or if you prefer SysML, using the activity diagram. And then use that to assign starts and durations. You can associate resources with it, including people. And so you can add costs to it. And from that, by running the simulators, you can get a dynamic estimate of your cost and schedule. And if you put variability in there when you make these estimates, you can run the Monte Carlo, which gives you a kind of a feeling about your cost and schedule risk. So that's another thing you can do. Again, all within the same tool. You don't have to go outside to it. You don't have to have any plugins or anything extra special. It's all right there for you. Also, you can create organization charts. Here's an example of a simple organization chart that you might create in the tool. It's a hierarchy diagram. It's a very simple chart. But you can also do cost using the hierarchy chart as well, with the cost elements and seeing that decomposition. So that creates your detailed work breakdown structure. So many different uses of the diagram form hierarchy chart with different classes of information to give you different types of charts you're used to building and seeing and using. The nice thing about doing it here is, again, I can take these diagrams and now put them directly into my project plan. And as I change these diagrams, then it's automatically updated in my project plan, okay? Something that if you've ever, unless you write the perfect project plan the first time, guess what? You're going to be iterating on that thing for some time, and this can really speed that up and make it much easier to work with. So we highly recommend doing it that way. We do it that way. We actually run our programs that way, the contract work we have, and we find it to be very, very valuable. Okay, so once you have a complete plan together, and obviously there are more elements to the plan than this, I'm just giving you the high level stuff. There's tracking and control. So how do I track things, tracking issues, resources, performance, looking at against the work plan, trying to capture those iterations, things like that. So there's a lot to it. One of the things we found very useful in Innoslate is the timeline diagram. This diagram, again, works with the action diagram if you want. So if you did your first analysis in the action diagram, you're good there. And then you will go through and create the timeline diagram from it by opening the timeline diagram. And that's really all you have to do. And then you probably will move the different timelines in there and add milestones into this chart so that you can then adjust the start dates and adjust those times. And in fact, you can use this to adjust the durations and things like that you maybe initially had in the action diagram, but now want to adjust to be a more realistic kind of view from this perspective. Again, if you run the action diagram, you should get Gantt charts output that way too, which can, by the way, be exported to project. So that's another thing you can do with it. In here, the milestones are time elements, time entity class elements in the tool that are associated then now with this particular action. And you can see, you can put colors, you can do things like that, but you can also track progress. So one of the things we've been doing, we have a weekly meeting and we have this whole process. And again, there's can be many levels of decomposition to this. I'm just showing you a high level diagram, but you can have a much lower level detail, as detailed as you want to make it, okay, for your integrated management plan schedule. I'm sorry, integrated master schedule, your IMS. And so you can make this very detailed, put in the information, and then now as progress is made, you can track that progress doing just simply selecting the different tasks, which are actions, and they have a percent complete attribute associated with them. You just adjust that as appropriate to wherever you are in the process. So it's a great way to keep things up to date, know where things are, and as a team, you can kind of decide, yeah, we're kind of behind here on this one, and maybe if it's behind, you color it red or use other color coding. We actually have a project we are running right now where we had multiple paths, and we weren't sure what path we were going down, but as we did the research, it would tell us what path. And so we'll color red paths where we decide no longer go down that path. It seems like a dead end. So again, this is how you can use it in a research project like we're doing right now. You also can color it other colors like yellow where you're having problems or you're delayed for some reason. So you can use that color coding to help you understand things. I'll capture all my deliverables in it as well, see where I am on my deliverable schedule, and as I deliver things, I'll color the deliverable milestone green. And so that way I can see immediately I've met that requirement, and just in a quick view I can do that. And by the way, I also then take the output of this, put it into a table form in our database view, and use that to report out my monthly report as to what deliverables have been made and when they've been made, and that kind of thing, what's coming up, so that my customer can see we're really keeping control of the deliverables. So that tracking of the progress is very, very critical, and this diagram is very powerful capability to help you do that. It's also very easy to understand and easy to see and work with. Another thing you can do to track status is use workflow. So we do have built-in workflow. It's for any class of information that has an enumerated attribute. And usually the enumerated attribute you're interested in for workflow is status. So what's the status of my issue? So I can do my issue tracking. And in this case, I'm showing you that example. And so that can be set up by individuals or teams, and they can have permissions and notifications. And so then you can see then the state you want to go to for the next transition. And so this is very easy to set up. It's very, very straightforward to do. You can look at that and see if you're making progress with things. I'm not sure that's the best example, but it's an example you could use. If you notice, you can set this, we kind of out of the box give you an example for issues and requirements, but feel free to adjust those as you need to, or add those other classes like risk, test cases, other things you might want to track. Let's see what else. Yeah, again, you also have the lock capability. So in other words, once something's gone from one state to another, you can lock it so it doesn't automatically easily be opened and changed. Okay. So that's just a very quick overview of tracking. So another thing that you're interested in is risk and risk analysis and development. One of the hardest things is just identifying what the risks are, and let alone tracking them. So one of the things we have in all our technical processes is identification of risk. We actually have that as an explicit variable step in each of our processes for the systems engineering processes that we use. And so once you identify those risks, you can assess them, and then you review them with the customer and work through that process of mitigation and all the other things you need to do, avoidance, acceptance, or transfer, my personal favorite with risk. We can capture all that kind of information in a couple of forms. One is the risk matrix, which is in the background there, and that we do use probability and consequence for our risk values. And so those are related to then the bins that people use, and we use the 5x5 matrix that DoD puts out. This matrix, by the way, is adjustable. If you want a 10x10 or a 3x3 or whatever you want, by whatever you want, you can set this up any way you want, and recolorize the blocks. And this risk matrix is fantastic. It's also decomposable. So you can go down and have decompositions of these. So you can have very detailed risk with this. And of course, one of the nice things about that, if you're using decomposition, you could also just create a simple risk hierarchy chart as well, just again, by just selecting that type from the documents, from the diagrams open button there. The other thing that I know people were very interested in, we added just fairly recently, a couple point versions ago, was the risk burndown chart. You see that, that's in from one of our charts views. And this is showing a risk being burned down through different milestones. So at different times, which are milestones which are linked up back to those PDR, CDR, those kinds of things, that's when we have those points that we're saying, at those points of time, we expect those risks to be burned down these levels. Also, you can create a risk register with it using database view. That's another thing that we've done a lot, and I'm going to show you an example of that a little bit later here, where you can then track those and look at the mitigations or anything else you want to kind of look at with that register as you want to set up your register. Quality management. So quality management usually has two aspects to quality. One is looking at the work product quality itself, which is what most people think about, but also there's the conformance to your processes. So if you're doing good process improvement, you're always looking at that conformance to the defined processes. And are the processes working? Or people are having to change the process or work around the process because it's a bottleneck. So those are things you want to be doing as you're doing this analysis. And of course, you can design and develop all your processes in Innoslate as a process modeling tool. Check them with the simulators, make sure they work, make sure they have the right resources loaded, all of these things you can do with that part of that analysis that you might want to do. And of course, measuring the quality and working through that part of the process as well. Some of the specific things we do, again, capturing any kind of products and processes. I mentioned, so one of the things we do is we actually can generate automatically an RSRD for you. That's from the different tool information that's available in the tool. It starts from an activity, it starts from an asset diagram, which is our physical diagram, and then it looks at all the other different information that's connected to that asset diagram, and then it will create the information. And we're using the Defense Acquisition University template, the DAU template for this. So that's kind of cool. Another thing is other document types you might want to be looking at, test plans and ConOps, and I've got two examples of those things here, an example of each of those here. And so those are things that you can add in as you want to and work with. You use the templates we have. We have a couple of really good templates for the ConOps. We have some templates for the test plan as well. But again, as I said before, you can add your own templates as you need to these document types, but you can also create your own document types. And it's very easy to do and very easy to add them and add your own templates. And you can use the import analyzer to bring in templates that maybe have already been created in Word or some other format to create the template you want. Again, process models I mentioned earlier and auto-generate. Okay, good, got them all. Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing, I actually missed the top bullet, which was the products can include documentation. Okay, so if you have other external documentation or products or models or whatever you've got, they can be uploaded as artifacts. So treat this as sort of SharePoint Lite. You can put those in, and what's nice is then, since we have a nice description field and we've got a very nice search engine now, you can easily find things and work with it much easier than you can in SharePoint. Okay, CM process. Wow, okay, have I done enough? Well, no. You could track your, I'm sorry, so my CM process, of course, is looking at establishing the methodology, identifying the CIs themselves, configuration items, maintain that repository of them, controlling the change, of course, communicating the status. So that's the simple process. You can see the kinds of things we work with, how this all fits together. Configuration management plan inputs into your program management plan or your SEMP, whatever you're using. So again, use Innoslate to do that too. One of the things we've been very good about is creating what we call smart books, where you can now have a catalog of all of the information about your product or your systems, and then capture that information, pictures, descriptions, You can show how it fits together in the rest of the architecture. Again, all this ties together, and you can add cost. Again, all the different things you want to track and work with it. And if you need to, you can add attribute types to this, to the asset class, maybe create special subclasses as you want to. I know one of the things we're talking about is since we're working to upgrade our CAD viewer, we're looking to include a bill of materials as explicitly extracted from the CAD drawings. It's fairly easy to do. It's just something we haven't gotten around to doing, but we're working on it now, like many things. Another thing you see is that we can capture, again, those relevant artifacts can be captured in Innoslate as well. So again, if you've got a specific configuration item you're trying to track in terms of an artifact, that can help you provide that resource right there. Any electronic information can be captured easily that way. But also you have actual physical objects, right? You've got hardware, you got all different things with that. We can track those, and including location. So we have the ability to show locations of things. So including orbital locations. So if your asset happens to be in orbit, you can identify its orbital path through that mechanism, and then that way you know what the orbit is for the particular satellite that you have. Another thing that can happen is all documents can be baselined. In the documents view, there's a baseline. It's now in the more button, and you can select baseline, and it will help you create baselines as you need them. And then you can revert back to previous versions if you need to using the history. So each object has its own unique history, and that's the small overlay box here on top showing you a history of an object, this particular object, in fact, that we're looking at. So again, every object has this history file. You can track it and see it. Also, if you want to see changes and monitor changes to things, you'll see that on the activity feed. So as entities are changed in the database, you can look at that and you can be notified as well there. Let's see what else. And in Test Center, we have something equivalent to baselining. It's called test cycles. So you can run different test cycles and then track it that way and see the results as each cycle gets run. We're in the process of automating more and more of these kinds of capabilities, by the way. Subcontract management. Oh my. Well, gee, well, there must be nothing for Innoslate to do in subcontract management. That would be wrong. There's lots of things we can do with it. We can capture decisions and make sure they're available and use the subcontractors are meeting their goals and objectives. You can also schedule and the process model track and the subcontractor activities. You can include roles and responsibilities of each subcontractor as well. But the other thing that you can do we found very valuable is each subcontractor can have their own Innoslate project, and they can be working completely independently of other subcontractors even, and those other subcontractors don't have access to their information. You then, though, can create a master project to bring all the information together as you want to. If you do give the other subcontractors access to that project, and the other and contractor A, right, you give them access to your master project, that's okay, because they still can't see anything that contractor B put in there. Because if they go in themselves and look at your master project, all they'll see is the information they're available to see. So unless you gave them access to contractor B's project, they wouldn't see the information. It'd be redacted. So we do that data hiding for you. And that's through this idea of a cross-project entity. So an entity is cross-project when we are making the reference to it through a smart hyperlink, that we can then see and you'll see it in your master project. And if you change it in your master project, you will change it in the sub-project, by the way. Okay, so that's how you can get that concordance between the projects as well. We've been establishing this and using this for some time now. Works extremely well, and I think you'll find it to be very valuable for a lot of the situations you're going to run into it in a more complex program. So model-based reviews. So that's basically a quick once over our processes and some of the things Innoslate can do in them. But one of the things that people really, really want to do today is model-based reviews. I don't know if you know how long it takes to do a review. Most of you probably have had all kinds of experiences with these reviews. But what I've seen with it, usually what happens within a major program, at least a month before the review, a big review happens, you stop work. You build all the documentation, all the products, everything that review needs, okay? And then what do? You have to go through that review process, which sometimes can be painful. People aren't always nice in the reviews, as you might imagine. And so I think you find that it would be that doing this through the model-based, you can speed this up. And oh, by the way, then once you finish the standard review, right, then it takes you weeks to months to adjudicate all the comments and then provide all the feedback and make the changes, and then you can start again. So on a major program, a review cycle will often stop the program for anywhere from 3 to 6 months. That's a huge expense to any program. And when you think about that and the loss of productivity during that time, it's no wonder it seems to take forever to get a major project built in any of the major departments. So let me just go through quickly our process for this. So first of all, we suggest to provide reviewers access. There is a reviewer version of Innoslate. It's an inexpensive version that you can use to give them read-only access to the project. Or if you have enough floating licenses, you just give them a floating license with read-only access. Now, then you can give, what I usually do is have the reviewers give them a rubric, give them a template to go to in a documents view. And then the document then can guide them to the models and things that you want them to review and read. And then they can post comments as they need to, and any of the views are in. And so diagrams view, all those views have that commenting feature available to you. And so then have them do that. And then if you want to make this a more of an in-process review, you can actually go back and forth with the reviewer on that. Again, that's not always clear that people want to do that. That can get dicey at times, depends on the rules of engagement, but we found that to be very valuable. Also, the reviewers can use the chat functionality also to ask questions that way. Maybe they don't want to put something in the comments field specifically without asking a question first. So it gives them both options as they want to. And of course, remember, you always unshare it with people you don't want to have access to the database later. So that's very easy to do. So once the review is done, if you don't want the reviewers looking at it anymore, you just unshare it with them. And again, very simple, easy process to do that. Again, that cross-project collaboration gives us that redaction I mentioned a little bit earlier. Again, that ability to hide information. We're starting to think that this might even work in a multi-level security kind of environment. So if I'm in a higher level of classification overall in my project, I might have unclassified blocks in it. And so this is one of those things that I know I've been pursuing since the late 70s to see if we can't get to multi-level security really and make it really work well. And I think we can. Another thing, that quick review process. Again, this is that example, the comments tab showing you the comments and being able to put them in, and just very simple to do. And then you can resolve the comments by hitting the check mark as you go through the process as well. So, and of course the commenter can edit their comments. So if they're not happy with their comment, they feel like they didn't make a very good one, they can go back and fix it. So it's not one of those post it and then you're done. You can work with it as you need to. And then of course we do have a comments report. It's a very nice comments report. It's a nice tab spreadsheet. It's quite a nice piece of work. I think you'll find if you look at the comment review, it may not be exactly the form you're used to putting it in, but it certainly is a good form. And if you do want to have specific outputs, we can show you how to build your own special reports for that as well. Another thing is the artifact workflow. So another thing, if you do want to go through and add, like for the artifacts and have them look at specific documents and do a workflow with that and have reviewers have different aspects of that. Well, you could set up a process in the state machine model to give you the idea of how you'd want to modify the schema, and then how you'd add that attribute to it to give you those different steps. So what I showed in this first picture is the different steps or states of the artifact that you might have through the review process, and then you would just add that as an enumeration in the artifact class using the schema editor. Again, we have a full paper and webinar on this in detail. So if you don't not getting it right away here, don't worry about it. It's easy to pick up. And then of course add the workflow transitions. You know, who do you want to go to next? You know, maybe there are different levels of reviewers and things like that, different groups of reviewers you want. And so give them those permissions as you need to, and notify them of the transition, and of course lock it afterwards if need be. And of course, to complete the configuration control is that workflow process itself. And then again, as I just showed you an example here of the using it as an artifact. So I wanted to leave enough time to give you a quick walking through the tool itself a little bit, and then I want to open it up for questions. So I want to make sure I leave enough time for that. So do ask your questions as they asked in the questions window. It's real hard for us to do it any other way with a big group of people. Okay, so this is Innoslate and dashboard, and I'm going to use my classic project, which I use for everything for demo. I don't know, I've managed to dump seems like everything into this version of the tool. So first of all, one thing I want you to recognize is that actually every view you see in Innoslate is a dashboard. We call this our dashboard, but this is really kind of the master dashboard. This is the one where it's top level, it rolls up a lot of information, but every view you're going to see is a dashboard, because really the way we implemented Innoslate is there are rules for every dashboard or every view you see, diagrams, whatever it is, there are rules for that, and then there's the data underlying the database. So as you change the data, whether it be in one diagram or not one place or another place, doesn't matter, it'll automatically update and keep it concurrent. And that's very important concept called concordance, to make sure that you have that full configuration management of your data constantly. So let's just kind of go through here real quick briefly. So again, the wiki panel, here's to show me some requirements things. I can show status of things. Okay, so requirements, test cases. I can insert diagrams now. By the way, that's a new feature, just came into this, and plots. So both those came into the very recent point or sub-point release that we just put out. But one of the most useful things to you as a reviewer would be two things: is comments feed, activity feed, and the comments feed. And again, the comments feed will take you directly to the comment itself. You could just hyperlink to it. And of course, I have to sign back in. There we go. And there's that test comment she put in, so I can say resolved and put that in as my comment. And so those things you can do and add to it as you want. It's that easy to go back and forth and work with the commenting feature of the tool. Let's see, what else I want to show you quickly. So if you're in a diagram, I'm sorry, let's just start with documents view. So documents view, again, here's for your plans, your test plans, all those different things. Different document types are here. You just select new document. These are different types we have, and I've actually added one or two here just for fun. And then as you go through and select one of them, then you go next, and then there would be a template. Of course, you've got to give it something. So I'll just say temp. I'm not going to do it anyway. And then here's your templates that are available to you. So different templates, options for you, and of course your own custom templates as you need to add in your custom template. And then go back if you don't want to do that. And so Jen, take a look at these: program management, project management plan. Here's an example of project management plan. This is just their template. I think this may be It's probably a NASA template, actually. Looks like, yeah, this is the NASA template for it. Very nice one, actually. Let's show you one a little more filled in. Well, here, this is a test plan, but same idea. So this is starting to fill it in. I've taken out the italicized items, which are the guidelines that come with the template. And now I'm putting information in. So this is actually my process, my test process I want to go through. I capture my risks. I've got charts showing me some data results. Here's a risk burn down chart as well. You know, just again, anything you want to put into it is very easy to add and make that available to it. Again, those are all live diagrams. This is not stuff I'm making up. This is all stuff I can go to and go to the live diagram. If I put the hyperlink in there, it'll take me directly to it even. What else here? So that's that. Oh, I'm sorry. Commenting. So commenting when you're in that view, just select any item here, and then there's up here in the tabs, the top left is the comments tab. So again, lets you add those comments, work with them as you need to, and go back and forth between different people. By the way, anytime you do want to see a simple report like in a document output format, docx, those kinds of things are available. We have spreadsheets, we have lots of other output types, so those can also be provided. So let's say the RVTM is one of your types. You can do that a couple of different ways. You can provide it as a document for people to look at, or you can set it up in database view and create the equivalent of an RVTM in that. I'll show you how that works in a second. I mentioned process modeling. Again, here's an example of a process. This is actually a systems process, but this could be your functional process as well. And then you would just, if you want to see how it works dynamically, just use the simulators right here for it, for those who aren't familiar with the tool. Let's see, another one. Let's see, I think we had timeline diagrams. Let's go take a look at a timeline diagram real quickly. A couple different examples of those. Looks like I was playing with the system acceptance test. So you can see this does have decomposition. Not all of them do. As you want to adjust the timelines, you just simply move it to the start date, and you can see at the bottom left here corner is showing you the date. And then once you're happy with that, you just extend it out to where you want to go, and you see the end date, and you're done. It's that easy to adjust those. To grab a new timeline in, if you need to, you would just simply grab it and put it up underneath this and drop it and put it to a lower level. Okay. Also milestones, similarly, I can add a milestone. Okay. I don't want to save it because this is actually going to change something I don't want to change. Okay, and then here was that example showing you kind of the colorized, looking pretty, filled in. The progress bar is here. You just click that and change the progress. You change % complete. So if I say, well, that's 80% complete now, you see it changed the value of it there too. Okay. Again, very easy to work with and develop as you need to. I'm trying to think what else do I need to show you. How you get to the schema editor is here, and just the workflow is right here. So this is where you'd set up the different workflows, and again, very easy to do, adjust as you need to. Select from the group of people who are here available. And again, teams can be set up at the organizational level, so you can do that as well. So I've talked a lot and I've only left 15 minutes, so I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So why don't we jump to questions now? That's okay, Sarah?
Sure. So we've already received a few questions. If you haven't done so, please send your questions to the panel on the right. Feel free to ask as many questions as you have, and Dr. Dan will answer as many as possible before our time is up. So our first question is, in the PowerPoint on page 10, what can simulators do in this phase, and can you show any examples?
Okay, let me just take a quick look at page 10. Okay. Yes, so the output of the simulator is a couple different forms. And I'm just going to use this one because I know it's working. I don't want to show you something that's not working. So imagine this is your process, your actual work process that you're developing, and you've assigned people and costs and all kinds of things with it, right? So having done that, then once I have the model the way I want it, and I can go in here and I can put in distributions for the time, I can put in distributions for cost, I can put in distribution for all kinds of things. Okay, so that's here. It looks like somebody's been messing with my model here. Move that. Thank you. Now let me simulate it. Let's do that. So this is an example. It kind of shows you all the different things that are available. Here's my model. So this is my full model, my processes all put together here. And I can highlight over it. I can click on it and see the different information about it here. I can expand it up so it's more readable. Okay, so it's live. This is actually taking a duplicate of the information and creating this model with it in the tool. Let me hit play. And you can adjust and see it's picking up time as time's moving on. I'm building up my Gantt chart, my cost pie chart's changing. I'm getting my total cost curve changing, my cost breakdown bars changing. Now we have two types of one is resources, the other assets. The assets is representing people, and you're going to see in a minute here we have teams that are actually firefighting teams that we're representing with this particular part of the analysis. And then resources are using the different resources that are available. In this case, we're representing a forest fire burn and the process of putting that forest fire out. And so that work process shows the fire, and the fire is coming up as a resource here. And let me speed it up just a little bit. And once the firefighting teams get queued and on station, they come in and they start putting water on it. And so there's water going down in different groups and different paths, and after time, at some point in time, they run out of water, they have to go refill the tanks. So that's the way the model's set up. As you see, I'm building this Gantt chart automatically for me. I can export that to project if you're still hung up on project, which I haven't used now in about 10 years since I've been using this. So you can see the different aspects of it. But you see how you have this integrated model together of your whole system, which is now a people system, and your people and how it's working. So this is how you would operate. And you can speed it up. Go fast. This is modeling the California wildfires. So needless to say, there are lots. It takes a long time to put them out. In this case, 3.79 months. Now, of course, that's fine, but there's a lot of variability in this model, and there's a lot more you want to understand about it. So if I want to understand my risk and cost and schedule particularly, but also resources, then I would run the Monte Carlo. And the Monte Carlo takes that same model, changes the random seed, and reruns it each time. And so then accumulates the information for me automatically. And as you see, I also can write to the console, by the way. So I can see warnings and problems and other things like that as well in the model. But as you see the output you kind of get these heat maps showing the tree maps here. They're showing the amount of time you spend in a particular activity. But probably most interesting to me usually is these bar charts where it's showing me the range in time. Okay, so this ranges from being less than 11 days, less than or equal to about 11 days, and then greater than 7 months potentially. So that time can be very, very strongly variable. And then also distributions. And by the way, I only ran this 100 times just so it'd be fast enough to show in a demo, but you can adjust the number of runs that you need to make to match whatever you think the values you need to, actually there's an algorithm for that too. But also, by the way, you do have project outputs to the longest duration, shortest duration, highest cost, lowest cost. So you can have the boundaries of the different things. Those will give you the Gantt charts and things like that for each of those different options. I think that hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you. Our next question is going to be, can you set up slide 12 in the PowerPoint without an action diagram? If yes, how?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, you can go directly to the timeline diagram. You just open a timeline diagram and use it directly. Yeah, I'm sorry if I implied something, but so here. So this is a timeline diagram. I could do this first, and then all I do is open up the action diagram if I want to see that as an action diagram. I was just saying that if you start here with the process model, you can then go to the other one, and what it'll do is when I open it up, timeline diagram. No, it's here somewhere. There we go. It would provide all these, but probably have the start date here together since it was all in parallel. So they'd all show up here that way. And so it makes sense that you would then adjust the start dates and times as you want to that way. So this is just another way to interact with the information. So this lets you use it for both the technical kind of work, the simulator, but also for the programmatic side of it. Next slide. Next question. Next slide.
Can Innoslate link to weekly or monthly cost accounting systems such as SAP or Compass to keep the schedule and cost matrix up to date?
Yeah, usually the way you get those outputs are some kind of a CSV file or output like that. You can import those in directly as you need to, and then use those to look against it. And particularly the place for that would be charts view. So once you have your baseline set, you would create a chart of it. In fact, I think I have a progress chart there, didn't I? Example. Let me go back and see that again. I have the progress chart. Yeah, so this could show me my actuals versus other, the planned. And so right now we don't have the full EVM capability to do that analysis for you automatically. We are looking to add that in, so just let you know that is a future development that we are looking at in probably within the next year time frame.
Our next question is, can I import an Excel file into database and associate it to a hierarchy chart?
Yes, of course. So you can import using the import analyzer. We do have a CSV import specifically. And so you can bring it in that way. It can actually look at put it into different classes of information. And we do look for the number scheme to help us create the hierarchy for you automatically. So if you import it that way with the numbering scheme that you want, you will get the parent-child relationships automatically created and then create the hierarchy chart immediately for you.
Thank you. Our next question is, can you show us a step-by-step process of project planning that uses Innoslate? The tool looks great. For someone who has not done this before, what are the sequence of steps?
So probably the best example that I hate to say is in my book. And I actually go through talking about doing that for starting a moon-based project. And so I don't know if I've got that handy, but that's probably the best guide we've got for that right now. There is other I think we've had webinars, we've had other papers and things like that that are online resources that might be available for that purpose. But that's probably the closest I have to a real step-by-step. It literally goes through that process diagrams I was showing you and actually walks through doing it there. So it's about as close as you get.
Thank you. As someone who is very new to MBSE, where's a good starting point for developing a project via Innoslate?
So one of the things that I think a lot of times people they're a little uncomfortable at first with a new tool with all these different features. So one of the things I'm showing everything pinned up here. So first of all, what I recommend is get rid of the stuff you're not going to mess with. If you're not going to do some of these things, just take them off the list so I don't have to look at them. I'm not going to do test centers. So you can kind of keep it down to the simple things you want to work with. Then I'd highly recommend focusing in on just the key diagrams you're interested in, and particularly things like something you're really familiar with, like a timeline diagram. And that might be a great place for you to start. And so that way you can kind of work in that. And then the nice thing, as I showed you, was you can go directly from this into the modeling. And so working that way. So, you know, it's you know, with something like a Microsoft project, all I'm ever going to get is the Gantt chart. I don't end up having a model of my process. And so I can't go do the process analysis I really should do to make sure my process is going to work for my project. And so this lets you have both.
Our next question is, many projects are managed by developing project plans and other documents in Word, WBS, and resource loading in MS Project. Where do you see Innoslate fitting in here? Another tool in the process? Would you replace these tools with Innoslate, or use Innoslate as a starting point, then flow down into these other software packages?
So the way I look at the Microsoft Office suite is it's really a publication package. So maybe for a final product, I would want to finalize things and put things there. For example, in our programs, we collaboratively work on documents in Documents View, up to the point where we say we've got to publish this and put it out to the customer. What I call making it shelfware. and so we then take it out, we spend it maybe a day or so or a few hours, depending on how long it really takes to manipulate it, to clean it up, add some footers and headers, and put in the style sheet we want to use and stuff like that. And once we have it in the form, that final form, then we publish it and put it on the shelf. And then we upload that as an artifact in the database to say this is what we delivered. But the living document is in Innoslate. And so that's how we actually are running projects today. And we've found great success doing it that way. It keeps us access to the information and keeps it live and allows us to reuse the information for other things. So I hope that answers my question.
That concludes the question and answer portion of our webinar. We'd like to thank you again for joining us for today's webinar. Make sure to join us next time for our next webinar, The Path to Digital Engineering, on November 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, we will also be sending the recording and slide deck to everyone that attended today. We'd also like to make a quick announcement that the Model-Based Systems Engineering Conference's registration is now open. MBS Econ will take place virtually February 22nd through the 24th, 2021, and will focus on model-based systems engineering through experienced invited speakers and panelists, workshops, and paper presentations. To learn more about MBS Econ, please visit mbsecon.heysummit.com. For more resources, we encourage you to visit our website and our blog, as well as connect with us on social media through the Innoslate user group or through Twitter using the handle @Innoslate. That concludes today's presentation. Thank you again for your attendance, and we hope to see you again at our next webinar. Please enjoy the rest of your day.